Route 616, your home for all things Marvel main continuity. Hello, everybody. This is RJ here, /RJ Epic. And, well, this week you can see us. We are doing Facecam now.
We're very sorry for that.
Yeah, you can really see the three generations of dumbassery here. So, I have Bill with me. Say hi, Bill.
Hey.
And I have the token cis straight guy, Dan. Oh, so this is a...
when did I become the token straight? Oh, I suppose I've always been the token straight guy.
You were always the token in our friend group.
You just didn't know.
I suppose.
Dun,
I just
dun,
didn't...
dun.
I never really thought about it. Cool. Hi, hi, I'm straight. I'm sorry about that.
Hey, you should be. I'm just kidding. Anyways, we have a pretty fun week ahead of us here. This probably is going to be a relatively shorter episode because we only have 6 entries and some of them are pretty short. We're going to start off with Amazing Spider-Man issue number 8, where there is 2 stories this week.
I thought you said this was going to be a fun week.
Well, fun for me and Bill, not so much for you.
Your suffering improves the enjoyment.
Pretty much all you have to look forward to right now is the Iron Man story, which is with the 1-year covering. So,
I'm
you're
good
welcome,
with that.
by the way. Tales of Suspense 49 is coming after that, which I just spoiled, and then it's the A and B story as well. We have a little shitty 5-pager for the B story. And then we have, to end us off, a couple of Thor issues, Thor A stories. We have A story for issue number 99 and A story for issue number 100. So I guess we're also reaching a milestone for that this week, so that's cool. So to get us
it's
right
less
into
of an
it,
impressive milestone when more than half of the journey to that milestone issue were covered by non-covered stories.
Yeah.
And yes, everybody, I am drinking eggnog in October.
Ooh.
Fuck, that's what I forgot to get at the store today.
And we are going to get right into this as we start Amazing Spider-Man issue number 8, and we're going to go, of course, with the A story first. I say, of course, but that will change up as the order goes on.
This is our special Tribute to Teenagers issue.
Here we go. The Terrible Threat of the Living Brain. This is, of course, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, and then the only difference besides their 2 names is already Simic letters. And this is a October 1963 release. This is a 17-page story. And off we go to the races. And I actually did pull this up ahead of time for once. Yes, I will be looking at my phone just to, avoid being called out for it. Possibly. Okay, here we go. Assuming it lets me.
Let's do this. This podcast is going to actually be a really, really quick one because Ryan does have to go do something, so...
I am actually socializing for once, so...
Apparently he has friends.
Who would have thought?
I think it's a lie, but...
Yeah, which
just
makes me wonder why he's doing the whole white guy podcast thing, but,
I was going to make a joke that welcome to the liberal agenda, so... Okay.
I have no comment for that.
The Terrible Threat of the Living Brain, as we open up with a page showing the living brain and Spider-Man trying to jump on it back. So we're asked the question.
One could apparently call it the terrible design of the living brain as well, because that is one shitty-looking villain.
Yeah, and I realized way too late into this issue that the living brain is even green. So we're not escaping the green villains yet. And we were asked the question here.
Fuck off.
How would you like to see Peter Parker fight Flash Thompson, see Spider-Man fight a non-human menace, and see a tale of sheer fantasy so real you feel like it's happening to you?
Can we say no and just move on to the next issue?
Well, I mean, the next fin is the even shittier, actually shitty Spider-Man story. So
yeah, we can say no to that.
You'll probably like this one after seeing the next one.
Okay. The living brain overperforms.
It does. So we open up here with the living brain being brought in to be shown to Peter's class, as we see that it is a what exactly did they call it? I guess it's a kind of robot.
It's a supercomputer that they gave a robotic body for reasons,
and it can because it's a living computer. Essentially, it can calculate any type of question you give it. To the point that they even go and ask it, what Spider-Man's identity will be, which is a cliffhanger, which is a question we're left on throughout the whole thing, because we never get to see if the Living Brain actually gives the right answer, but he gives the right answers to every other question that he was given. So it's left to we're left to assume he probably would have solved that too. So
there's a major flaw with the premise there, because Peter is the one who's tasked with inputting the data.
Yeah.
And no one's watching what he puts in.
He technically could be fucking the results.
He could have just put in information that would not lead to him, and no one would have ever noticed.
It's assumed that he is too honest a guy and doesn't do that with how he's talking about it and stuff, since he's worried that it's still gonna reveal.
Yeah, he's worried it's gonna owe him, but he could have totally faked it.
Yeah. That's what she said.
But throughout this whole thing, though, we see Flash Thompson bullying Peter and everything, and we then see two randos that are like, "Hey, man, we could get we get some real money for this Living Brain guy, couldn't we?" And they plan to steal the Living Brain and sell him for big old cash. So at one point they're looking at Spider-Man's article in Now magazine, done by J. Jonah Jameson, of course. By the way, this is a historic issue. This is the first issue. I meant to say this at the start. The first issue without either J. Jonah Jameson or Aunt May. They have been in every issue up to this point. They're not in this issue.
Wait,
the
there's
lack
no
of J. Jonah hurts it.
It does.
There's no J. Jonah.
No,
There's
or
no
Aunt
J.
May.
Jonah.
Then why are we doing this?
Well, the order says so.
This sucks. He's my hero.
We get to the point where they start inputting the data for Spider-Man to see if the Living Brain can calculate who is Spider-Man, the secret identity. And then after that, Flash keeps pushing Spider-Man until Spider-Man keeps pushing Peter. He's not as Spider-Man here. He keeps pushing Peter until he's had enough, and things just start to boil over. So the professor comes up with an idea, and how are we going to solve this constant rivalry? Obviously, it's time for a boxing match. So
I mean, you can tell it's the 60s education system. You have a problem, so you just solve it with violence.
Is that wrong?
I'm sure that's.
I mean, I'd say no, but arguably making you participate in a podcast with two Spider-Man stories is a form of violence on you. So
yeah, it's the American way.
You just reminded me of a joke I had connected to this story. Not yet. I don't know if I already passed where the joke takes place, but I'll say it at some point. So Peter tries not to use his actual strength that he has as Spider-Man. He holds back his punches until he just kind of has enough, and he's like, "Oh, I'll put a little strength into it, but it shouldn't do much." And he sends Flash flying on accident. So Flash is out of the ring, but he comes back in. He probably has a concussion, but it's the 60s. So he comes back in.
It could have been 2 weeks ago in Miami, and they still would have let it fly.
True.
Yeah.
Tua. Fuck. Very, very good reference. In the middle of this boxing match, we see the Living Brain set loose by accident by the two guys that were going to sell the Living Brain, but he is now causing chaos. The Living Brain as makes the robot makes his way through the school. And
I don't know why you design a murder button on this thing, but apparently they accidentally hit it.
Why would you build a robot without one?
Because not everyone is making Daleks.
Okay, that's fine. Be like that.
We go back to the boxing match, and Flash Thompson's trying to give it his all here, but he's got the spider senses, and he's dodging. He's got those great reflexes, and Peter gives him a good old punch and whops him, knocks him right out. And Peter turns himself into the heel by hitting Flash seemingly so hard.
Well, he gets Flash right when Flash gets distracted by everyone.
Yeah, Flash
yelling
gets
about
distracted.
The living
That's
brain,
why.
And it's too late for him to stop his punch, so he knocks him out, and everyone just assumes it's Peter's heel turn.
So yeah, Peter's the asshole because he hit a distracted Flash. So then Peter, we get a funny panel where Peter like carries a Flash off in his arms, which is interesting. And then exactly 30 seconds later, apparently we had to know. We see Peter's in a Spider-Man costume, and he is ready to tackle the Living Brain. He does so pretty unsuccessfully for a while. He momentarily stops the Living Brain with his webs, but doesn't last for long. Spidey is eventually cornered, and it looks bad, but he uses his reflexes to dodge out. Okay. Spider-Man takes a moment to help some students get in. We see a locked door in the school, and the Republicans would be proud. There's my joke that I mentioned.
Oh, yay. I made a joke.
I did.
Wow.
We see Peter get knocked down by a door just toppling on him from the Living Brain, knock it down.
He was framed.
Oh, fuck off.
And we see the two-bit thugs also trample over Spider-Man. And Spidey continues to fight the Living Brain pretty unsuccessfully until... Oh, no,
So Ryan
not
forgot
yet.
where he was.
Not yet.
Well, there's
He
like
gets-
7 samey pages of Spider-Man fighting the Living Brain.
Really?
Yeah. This is probably the worst issue in terms of fight scenes, because this series has actually had good fight scenes. Peter,
My intelligence
Spider-Man has to
circuits
save
have
some more
melted.
kids, and the kids are barely saved by Spidey, but he jumps right over and on top of the Living Brain. Spidey's getting dragged over to a staircase, and it looks bad, like Living Brain might like drop him on the steps or something. And he tries to wiggle out, but is unsuccessful, but he uses webs to make them fly through a fucking window. Interesting maneuver. The two-bit thugs are caught trying to escape. We see Flash wake up to, he's like, oh, my head, because you know concussion. And then he gets trampled by the two-bit thugs as they're running away. And then it makes Flash look like a hero because they had tripped over Flash and knocked themselves out. So apparently somewhere in there, oh yeah, Spider-Man took care of the Living Brain when after they flew through the window, he just like found his off switch or something. So good end to that. But Spider-Man is turned back into Peter Parker, and we see the issue kind of ends with Flash getting a hell of a lot of recognition because he stopped the two-bit thugs.
Peter also played it off that the only one who no one saw during the brain fight was Flash, so he must be Spider-Man. That's why he interrupted Peter's presentation on the identity of Spider-Man earlier.
Yeah, he does do that. And then the issue ends with Peter kind of like, yeah, I did it. And he's happy that he got the Walt Flash. And then we're told not to go away as we have another story coming our way in this issue.
I'm sorry for that part.
And you should be. You really should be.
So, how did we feel about the A story? I'm sure Dan loved it.
Tedious.
It actually is a little tedious, but it's still pretty good. It's way better than you'd think it'd be.
Yeah, everything not Living Brain was pretty good. And I think this whole issue rated higher with me than it would have normally, just because I saw the tribute to teenagers on the cover and was expecting a couple of 40-year-old guys writing in a teenager-centric story to completely balls it up, so my expectations were rock bottom, so anything not completely awful impressed me, which I think is also what's going to lead to my soon-to-be-revealed inflated rating for the B story.
Okay, so the question, I guess, is the Living Brain, the bad guy, the villain of the piece, what are his
Realistically,
superpowers?
he's not necessarily a bad guy, but
It's a robot that flails its arms a lot and is really difficult to get to the off switch.
it's
Okay,
technically just a malfunctioning robot, really.
So it's not like it's, Wile E. Coyote. It's not a super genius.
It actually starts
It's
outsmarting people because that's why I made the murder button joke, because it started like, instead of just running amok and being dangerous because it's out of control, it started actually trying to like incapacitate Spider-Man so it could continue its rampage, which is where the story really lost the plot, because as long as it was just out of control and flailing around just accidentally being dangerous, it made a fair bit of sense as a story.
So you're suggesting there was a plot.
Even outside of the Flash-Peter fight, yes, there was an actual plot. It was just not a good one.
Stan also wrote The Living Brand as if he could, like, hear Spider-Man at one point, which was an interesting move, but yeah. Honestly, the best part by far of this issue was definitely the fight between Peter and Flash, because it's just nice to see. You want to see Peter take on his bullies at some point, and it's just kind of nice to see that, even if he turns himself into the heel by doing so, but...
I mean, turning himself into the heel isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's personality.
It's also the theme of this issue, as we'll continue to see.
That he has a soul?
No, that he's the heel. Any claims of him having a soul get severely damaged by the B story.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just wait. And, well, for the rating, I'm going to give this one a solid 3, which is actually one of the weaker ratings for Spider-Man so far.
I gave it a 3 as well. Of course. We know what you rated. But I gave it a 3 as well, because all the non-living brain...
I'm giving it a 1.
All the non-living brain stuff was probably 4 stars still. And then the living brain stuff was a solid 2. Because it was terrible. But
I question whether you're just being overly generous or this whole Spider-Man fanboy thing is getting out of hand.
No,
I mean, keep in mind that this stuff is also graded on a curve compared to the average
1963
story.
We're right on average for this issue.
How Marvel survived the 60s still baffles me.
This one reads way better than it overperforms, like Bill said.
Yeah, even the fight isn't a terrible read.
I can't excuse Bill's rating for the B story, but we'll get there.
Like I said, I'm pretty sure it was just because I was expecting solid 1-star territory when they said tribute to teenagers, so anything not that was getting fairly good.
We, unfortunately, we don't see the Living Brain again until Web of Spider-Man issue number 35, and for reference, that series doesn't start until 1985, so...
Say it ain't so.
The fact they brought it back at all shocks me.
Well, it ended up in, like, the 90s cartoon, I believe, so... It got some traction for a whole, like, 50... It got its 15 minutes of fame, so to say.
Yeah, but in the interest of doing this quickly, we should probably move on.
Yeah, that's where I was going. So going to the B story... There's Sam Rosen does the letters here, so there's a difference. Jack Kirby supposedly does some art here, too.
Yeah, he penciled it, and then Steve Ditko inked it.
Yeah, so on we go. Oh, yeah, how many pages is this one? This is 6 pages.
Yeah, and it's very obvious Jack did do the art on this, because you can look at the faces, and they're Jack faces.
Yeah. So... Spider-Man is here to crash Torch's party, and is also here to steal his girl, as Spider-Man eyes Doris Evans. This is the...
Oh, yeah, because Whiny Boy has a chance.
This is...
Hi, I'm clinically depressed. Will you be my girlfriend?
Just when you think it's an all-heel program, Spidey actually almost turns Torch face in this one. He full-on does crash Torch's party. He makes a bat out of webs to scare people, and as a little prank. He then goes inside and has webbed up Johnny with his web bat. And he's just kind of bragging and being a little douchebag, saying, I don't even know. I don't care. He's just bragging about his webs.
He thinks he's going to impress the women at the party by picking a fight with Johnny.
He thinks
dick.
He thinks that Doris Evans should be with a better guy than the Flamehead.
Because he's jealous that Johnny has friends and is at a party. And that's not me making fun of it. That's literally the motivation in the story.
Yeah, but the Human Torch is hot.
Anyways, Human Torch flames on and gets out of the webs and goes fully out of his civilian clothes.
Hey, he's on fire.
He is, as he shoots an arrow made of fire, literally an arrow made of fire at Spider-Man in the air. Yeah,
this brings back fire bullshit as well.
Arrow made of fire.
We're back to Green Lantern territory again.
Yes, Spider-Man starts falling, but makes web parachutes, one for each hand. They start fighting on the beach, and I wish Sandman was here. Johnny is covered in sand, but he just flings it off as he flames on again. He almost erupts, one could say. He throws some flaming discs at Spider-Man. There's a huge fireball thrown, and then we see the rest of the Fantastic Four just sitting on a ledge as Spider-Man looks up, and
we can hear you breathing, Bill.
Reed's like, "Can I give you?"
Me.
Yeah, it's just you've hit your nose, kind of.
Oh, sorry.
Reed's like, "Can I give you a hand, son?" And Finn's like, "Oh, Torchy ain't as easy to fight as you'd think, huh?" And Spider-Man's like, "What are you guys doing here?" And then Spider-Man also continues to be an asshole and fights the rest of the Fantastic Four because, smart move. Ben throws him away, and Spider-Man does the biggest web glider maneuver you ever did see. And then Spider-Man eats shit after Sue. Sue gets a moment and takes Spider-Man down while invisible. He grabs him right out of the air. And Sue then hits on Spidey and is like, "You're entirely too clever and adorable to be fighting with us. I'll bet you're as handsome as you are, you're as handsome as you are muscular under that mask."
Yeah, we take a brief time out from the Jan character assassination to move it over to Sue since we're not doing a giant man in this issue.
We will ignore the character's age differential in this case. So then... So Spider-Man and Torch stop fighting for no reason, and Spidey kind of just...
it wasn't for no reason. The Fantastic Four made them kiss and make up.
Yeah. Sue is like, you handsome boys should stop fighting. So Spidey just kind of tantrums off and goes away, but he leaves a heart made out of webs for Sue as he leaves. I'm not joking. There's a heart made out of webs.
I feel like I should throw up right about now.
This it was a story.
That it was. Even the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man teams in the future ignored that this happened.
Also, here's the cover for the curiosity, since I can show it now. Look at that cover.
Ooh, look at that. That's
the cover
horrible.
is actually great. Oh, never mind.
No, I'm with Dan on this one. If it was just the scene of Spidey and Torch, it would be good. But
yeah.
Adding in those other two little panels.
Those little bubbles.
I don't know. I have a soft spot for covers with bubbles on them, so that's just me though. 1 star for me. Fuck that story. Dan
I gave it a 3, and I honestly don't know what I was thinking when I rated it that highly.
I don't know what you were thinking either.
It's horrible.
I don't think I would have gone 1 star nowadays. I would have gone 2 because the fight's not bad.
I think it's better than the one before. I like this story better than the one before it. No, I
hate
do.
You.
No. Look, I'm allowed to have an opinion, young man. You and your hot rod and your wacky weed. It's actually a better story than the first one. Right, the first one is just the same old hackneyed plot. Insert generic villain here. What color was the robot anyway?
Green.
Of course.
We've covered this
1,000 times.
I did make sure to point it out earlier.
Yeah, no, but he's senile. He's forgotten.
What? What are we doing here today?
They can see how old
This is a Doctor Who podcast, isn't it? But no, it's a better story than the first one. I'm sorry, it just is.
Anyways, moving on.
Okay, fine. I have a legitimate comment. I better quit this one and go on to the next one. Heaven forbid I actually like a story more than Ryan.
That is kind of fucked up.
I suspect you just like it more because you didn't actually read it.
No, I think I like it more because it's not the usual generic, good guy, bad guy crap.
Dan can relate to this fuck your party and steal your girl motive.
Yeah, totally.
Anyways, let's move on to Tales of Suspense.
I think it had... now, to defend Dan a bit, I think it had a higher potential top end than the first story, but in execution, it is not better than the first story.
Well,
Correct.
it's a better insight into them as people. First of all, you
that's
guys
what I
keep
mean
complaining about how it's just so generic, and when we do get an insight into them, Ryan gets all, "Oh, I didn't want that."
That's what I mean.
Because
it had
it was
a potential
written so
high
shit.
end. Like if it had been done well, this would have been the better
If it
story.
was done well, it would have been a 4 or 5 star story.
This was
But
just
it's-
not done well.
No, it sounds horrible, but the concept is strong.
Yes,
It
the
is,
concept
it
is
is.
strong,
It is
whereas the
very,
first
very
story
strong.
actually worked well for what the concept was.
Which is the same concept that they have for every bloody comic.
Yeah,
Yes.
well,
How-
this time he didn't fight a human, so.
Oh no, it was a robot.
Anyways, moving on to Tales of Suspense number 49, the A story. The new Iron Man meets the Angel. Stan Lee and Steve. Well, Steve Ditko's on Earth this time. Yes,
Yeah.
this is I
Okay.
teased this last week. This is a good one. X-Men's Angel is crossing over into Iron Man here. Steve,
That's
And
right,
they
that's
make
right.
sure to note, I'm going to mention this before you pass off the actual reading duties. The Angel and the X-Men appear in this story through the courtesy of the editors of the X-Men magazine. The Avengers are depicted briefly on these pages by special arrangement with the copyright owners of the Avengers magazine. It's fucking them!
yeah,
Yeah.
it's that made me laugh when I saw that. So Steve Ditko's on the art. Paul Ryman is inking it, and we have Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko doing the cover, and Sam Rosen's on the letters. October 1963 release, 18-page story, and there you go, Dan.
Okay, with that lead in, how could I fail? Okay, I'm just so you know, guys, I'm just reading this directly off the summary of the Marvel database. So, the synopsis for the new Iron Man meets the Angel. As Iron Man guards a Stark Industries facility during an atomic bomb test, the Angel flies into the test range. Iron Man sees him and attempts to warn him of the danger. Yo, dumbass, get out of the way. Just then, the bomb detonates. Iron Man's armor effectively shields him from the radiation, but the Angel absorbs the full force of the explosion, blowing his little ass everywhere, corrupting his personality and turning him evil. Wow. Having recovered from the blast. Yeah, I know, right? Having recovered from the blast, Iron Man uses his new jet boots to soar into the air in order to check on the Angel, who flies from him. Whatever. Iron Man gives chase until his jet boots give out, causing him to fall to Earth. While plummeting, he uses his magnetic repeller to create a counterforce to help break his fall. Somebody want to explain the science on that one to me?
Nah.
Okay.
It's when magnets were magic in Marvel.
Oh, okay. He crashes through the roof of a Stark Industries warehouse, but he is luckily uninjured. Probably because he's called Iron Man and his suit is made out of... What's that? What is it? Oh,
Titanium.
Iron. Yeah. The corrupted Angel returns to Xavier's school for gifted youngsters and announces to the other wizards that Harry Potter is, over and he's leaving and... Oh, sorry. Wrong franchise. Announces that he's leaving the school and joining up with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Because that's where the action is. The X-Men try to talk him out of this, and as matters escalate, unsuccessfully attempt to prevent him from leaving. As he flies away, the Angel ignores Professor X's mental command to return. The Professor is left wondering if he's failed his young charges. Well, yeah, probably.
Not yet.
You're a loser. Professor X attempts to use his top-secret communication device to contact the Avengers for help. The Hulk, Thor, Giant Man, and Wasp cannot be reached. Boy, that's a good top-secret device.
Yeah. This
That's
is the
good
point
shit,
where we
man.
had to cut in with the very obvious continuity error they made on this issue.
Well, first of all, the Hulk left.
That would be it. With the site we use, we tried to even out the continuity errors, and sometimes it's not possible, in which case we'll pick the lesser of two evils, and in this case it was ruled that mentioning the Hulk as an Avenger after he officially left the team was less harmful to the reading experience than having a couple issues with Iron Man and new armor, then going back to the old Iron Man armor with no explanation for the Avengers, and then back to the new again. So,
yeah,
it's a bit of a mess, but
it really is.
Really.
Okay.
Most likely what happened is Steve Ditko didn't pay attention to what was going on with Avengers when he drew this issue.
I don't blame him.
Probably.
Avengers hasn't been worth reading so far, so.
Yeah. Unlike Spider-Man, which is just the most epic thing ever.
You're right.
Yeah,
at this point,
right,
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so only Iron Man, as Tony Stank, hears the summons. Feeling responsible for the Angel's madness, he resolves to make the young boy come back to his senses. As the Angel flies over New York City, he figures that if he makes a big enough show, the evil mutants will attempt to contact him. He steals some sticks of dynamite from a demolition site and goes on a rampage, tossing them up in the sky, in the water, near bridges. Although this does not succeed in drawing out the evil mutants, it does attract the attention of Iron Man. Iron Man pursues the Angel through the sky. I guess he gassed up his jump boots again?
Yeah.
Okay. Iron Man then pulls the Angel down to the ground and tries to talk some sense into him. The Angel locks Iron Man inside a building and attempts to get away. But Iron Man tears the locked door down and continues to give chase. He spots the Angel standing atop a water tower. Another locked door. Waiting for the evil mutants to show up, and puts into action a daring and risky plan. I'm riveted. He hurtles towards the Angel and tackles him, knocking him off the water tower. Not letting go, they race towards the sky, climbing further and further upward, until finally Iron Man's jets run out of energy. He begins to fall. Iron Man reveals that he's gambling that the Angel is truly good and will not allow him to fall to his death. He was wrong. This is the end of the Iron Man series. From here, we go on to the next story. What?
All right, so moving on to Tales of the Watcher.
Please no.
Please no. For many tense seconds, nothing happens. Then, at the last second, the Angel realizes he doesn't want the Armored Avenger to die and swoops down to grab him just before he hits the ground. This serves to snap him back to reality. Clever plan. I never would have thought of that. Sacrificing myself to have someone snap back to reality. He's a genius, just pure genius. Reversing the corruptive effects that the radiation had on his mind. I can't wait to hear you guys' explanation for this one. Afterwards, Iron Man explains to the Angel that his personality was affected by radiation from the atomic explosion. The X-Men arrive on the scene, having observed the battle, thank Iron Man for saving their teammate from his evil self. Iron Man subsequently flies back to Stark Industries. On his way, Professor X communicates to him, telling him he is now indebted to the Golden Gladiator.
That was a nickname they tried to make work for a while with Iron Man.
Oh, okay. Yeah, never mind.
That being thrown out there also could reveal that they had planned this story to come out before his armor change, too.
Yeah, because they dropped the Golden Gladiator thing once he painted most of his armor red.
So that was... Yeah.
It's an okay story, but with another lame-ass ending. It's just this dumbass resolution again. What is with these guys? Explain. You're the Marvel geeks. Explain.
It's a problem throughout the comic book industry at this time that they don't necessarily pay attention to page count.
So they come up with some dumbass way to end it?
Yeah, because
they
all of a
have to
sudden they
rush
realize
down
that they have only 2 pages left to end the story.
So imminent death is a cure for radiation poisoning. I guess kind of technically
I mean,
it is.
Given how bullshit the initial premise for his personality change was, it's not worse.
Angel Rick Jones himself.
Well, if I ever get cancer and have to have radiation therapy, I know how to keep myself from dying. I'll just have one of you threaten to kill yourselves. That should solve everything.
Should have let Captain Marvel know that one.
You have to actually like the person.
Fuck that noise. No. Don't need to like you guys. Just need to tolerate you. Bloody Marvel fans. Anyway, that was a.
It was pretty good. The ending is a little lame,
It
but it's
started
whatever.
strong, but it
I knew
ended
that's where it was
horribly.
going.
Yeah, but it
Yeah,
ended horribly. That's just the ending's pathetic.
I gave it a
Okay.
3. It was
Yeah.
solid.
I gave it a 3. I consider this the best story we covered this week. However,
That's fair enough.
the premise is really bad, but it's a comic book in 1963, so I kind of accept those nonsense science things because they're everywhere in the industry. So
I'll give it a 1. No, I'll give it a 2.
Okay. Off to the B story we go. As
Off
we
to the B story we go.
Oh yes, as we read
Ooh.
the saga of the Sneepers.
The Sneepers. Reprint of the first story from Spy Thrillers number 4. Originally
5-page
printed
story.
as the China Doll.
Ooh, Larry Lieber is on art this one and co-writing, and George Russo's is the inker. What a team!
yeah, it's not a direct reprint. They added some stuff around the outside of it to bring it into continuity.
Okay.
But the main part of the story is a direct reprint of a 4-page
Okay.
story that was printed before.
Okay, so the saga of the Sneepers. Jeepers, Sneepers, bad dude. Okay. The extraterrestrials known as the Sneepers hail from the Milky Way planet of Sneep. Okay. They were initially far more advanced than humans of Earth. As a people, they developed spaceflight early on and used it to invade and conquer several unnamed planets. For their next target, they discovered a small blue planet called Earth. It was too far from their planets to be reached easily, but due to the interesting life forms there, they decided to keep it under surveillance. No one would have known in the latter half of the 19th century. At first, humanity was technologically and culturally primitive. Compared to the spacefaring Sneepers, the cavemen were deemed beneath the Sneepers' consideration, and they continued to monitor them for amusement. The rise of empires such as Rome alerted them to humanity's capacity for advancement and conquest. Next stage was the Renaissance, which alerted the Sneepers to the existence of human creativity. The Industrial Revolution had them shocked at the speed with which humanity could progress. Okay, technically that's fair. The Sneepers as a people developed at a much slower rate, taking twice as long as humanity had to reach this point of development. They started worrying that the humans might one day take control of their portion of the galaxy. When humans discovered flight, the Sneepers figured rockets and spaceflight would be the next step. Now, I'm assuming they're watching us through sort of a Marvin the Martian's telescope or something. That's how they know all this shite.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so if they leave there and get here, due to never mind. The Sneepers developed super weapons to be ready for that possible military conflict with Earth. The humans then developed nuclear technology that quickly surpassed their own methods of energy production. Oh my God, what are we going to do? The Sneepers waited for the next step in human development. They were happy to see humans threaten one another with their nuclear weapons. By the 1960s, the arms race and conflicts in Cuba and Vietnam, riots and strikes managed to persuade them that it was only a matter of time before humans would destroy themselves. They decided to delay their violent plans against Earth, waiting to see if the human race destined self-destruction. I don't get it. What's the message?
Believe it or not, that was
story's real subtle.
Believe it or not, that was only 5 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dan's summary actually only covered 4 of the 5 pages because it omitted the framing device that made this an actual canon story.
Oh, really?
Because this is narrated by the Watcher.
Oh, okay. It doesn't actually say that in the synopsis.
No, I know.
Yeah,
I've read the synopsis because I don't have a Marvel Unlimited right now, and this
Oh,
one
okay.
wasn't available through nefarious means, so I read the summary to remind myself of what it was. And I knew they admitted that, but it's a little story told to us by the Watcher. And
It's like the
they
boss was
just
doing
literally
in
stuck the
Astonish.
reprint that was mentioned in your summary in a
Yeah.
framing, like one-page framing device, half at the start and half at the end of the Watcher setting up and concluding the story.
It's not exactly Orwellian, is it?
No,
Compared to
it's
the
bad.
other 5, I
Yeah.
gave it 2. Compared to the other 5 pages, it's not too bad, and the message, it had something going for it, even if it was really on the nose.
I gave it a 1 because they wrapped the message in a brick and hit you in the face with it.
Fair enough.
Repeatedly. Yeah, no, I
At least
wouldn't
it
give
had
this
a
more
wordy
than a 1.
message. It's fine.
Yeah,
I think I technically
you're
am
not
the-
wrong. You're not wrong. Yeah, the message is
it's better
actually
than a lot
legit.
of the-
Technically, I'm closer than average, so
Yeah, it's better than a lot of those little 5-page or 4-page morality tales they printed in the anthology books in the 50s.
Yeah, it's legit that this was something they needed to say, but it's been said a lot better.
yeah, I could have. This is actually a story that could have used more pages, even though it shouldn't have necessarily gotten it. But
Yeah,
it is what it is.
yeah.
I think if I had realized when I first read it that it was a reprint, it would have rated higher because knowing the quality of those 50s little twist morality tales that they were printing, this is a very good one.
Yeah.
And so rating it by the standards of the 60s comics hurt it because they're substantially better than the comics were at this time, but
Yeah. Well, you know what? I guess it's a valid point to say that at least they put this out there in a comic book.
yeah.
Get the next generation thinking, which they were already doing, actually.
Use your brains,
Well,
kid.
ignore that part. This is your brain on Marvel. Yeah, I saw that. This is the beauty of cameras. I can see where I'm making faces.
Moving on to the Journey into Mystery, issue number 99. Wait, yeah, we gave a rating.
I'll
so
bet
that's
you
the one
can't
we
wait.
just talked. 99, A story, The Mysterious Mister Hyde. Stan Lee's with Don Heck on this one. That's nice. Don Heck with Jack Kirby on the cover. And Artie Simic letters this one. October 1963 release. 13-page story. And this is the start of a run of Thor stories, which we will touch more on later. But this one is for Bill.
Alright, so this story opens with Thor flying over a crowd of people in the city. And we cut down into the crowd where there's a weird, brutish man lurking in the shadows. And
Is he a
that's
beefcake?
Mister Hyde, plotting his revenge on Thor.
So
Now,
Mr.
who he
Hyde
is-
isn't hiding.
Just keep going.
Screws him up every time.
Anyway. Thor is heading to Asgard to whine to his dad about how he's not allowed to see his girlfriend again. And so he complains to Odin, and Odin shuts him down in short order. And then we cut back to Mr. Hyde, who's talking about how he wants revenge on Don Blake. And then we cut over to Don's office, and we see Jane Foster pining for Don, just because we need to remind everyone of the status quo that they saw just last month. And we cut back to Hyde after the pointless Jane scene, and he's going to give the reason why he wants revenge on Don Blake. And it cuts back to a man named Calvin Zabo, who wants to get a job with Don Blake so that he can get access to his office and rob him later. And Don sees right through his plan and refuses to give him the job, so he storms off and vows to get vengeance on Don Blake. And then they remind us that Don Blake is Thor because, we're not reading a Thor story, so how would we know that? And we cut back to Zabo's lab, where he's combining chemicals to make a formula, and he believes he has reproduced the formula that Robert Louis Stevenson talked about in Dr. Jekyll and Mister Hyde, and sure enough, it worked, and so he turned himself into Mister Hyde. And he robbed some banks to get some money, and eventually decided now was his time to go and get revenge on Don Blake. So he goes to Don Blake's office and busts on the door, and we cut back to Thor in Asgard.
Hulk
and
wasn't
Thor's,
a good enough reference.
That's one ugly-ass shirt you're wearing, Ryan. Just so
Really
you know.
needed the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde Finn, like, spot on. Hulk wasn't enough. Stan's obsessed.
Possibly, yeah. Anyway, Thor keeps whining to Odin, and Odin gets fed up with him and tells him that he cannot possibly get a relationship with Jane because she lacks the virtues necessary to be with a god, which angers Thor to the point that he pulls his hammer and almost hits Odin with him, so Odin zaps him with a bolt of energy. And then they both say sorry, and Odin tells Thor that if Jane proves herself worthy of immortality, then he can come to her again, or come to him again, and Odin will consider his request. And so Thor's all happy, and he goes back to Don Blake's office and gets ready to turn back into Don Blake, just as Hyde busts down the front door. It's only been 7 pages, people.
Wow.
So Don turns back into Thor, or into Don, and he's in his office, and Hyde busts in and grabs him and just yeets him out the window. And luckily, he held on to his walking stick as he got yanked out the window. We cut to Hyde ripping open his safe, and then back to Don, who bangs his walking stick on the wall of the building and turns into Thor and flies away, despite the fact that Thor could never and will never again be able to fly.
Darn.
In fact, by the next page, he's back to throwing his hammer and just hanging on to imitate flight. And
Believe it or not, this is where the Thor stories start to get a little better.
I mean, this is vastly better than the last few Thor stories we covered.
Yeah, which is not saying much.
No, it's still not great, but it's better. Anyway, he enters Dawn's office as Thor, consoles Jane by assuring her that he caught Don Blake on the way down, and Don Blake is not dead. And then he leaps out the window and flies away, and turns back into Dawn and phones Jane from a payphone. And we cut over to Hyde, who's reading the newspaper that says that somehow Don Blake survived. And so he goes into a fit of rage. And then he plots some new revenge. The next day, we cut to one of New York's larger banks. And Thor busts down the wall, rips the door off the safe, steals a whole bunch of money, and flees. So the police start a manhunt for Thor, and that is our cliffhanger.
Because this is a 2-part story. Let's go.
Oh, my
Tricked
dear
ya. Didn't
God
tell you going in.
Heaven.
Didn't tell you going in. This is a 2-parter. Joke's on you guys. So, part 1 of the Mister Hyde story. How we feeling?
It's
Riveted.
fine.
Riveted.
I
Devastated we don't get to hear the end of this.
The cover is shit for this issue.
Yeah,
we
don't
do.
worry, we got another issue.
Yeah, we have another entry left.
Hey, which Bill is going to have to deal with.
Yes, correct.
The
Because if
second
you try
half,
and give me this, Ryan, I will strangle you with that ugly ass.
the second half is much easier to talk about because they get rid of the unconventional story structure of jumping
Because
around
it's-
to different things at
The
different
next
times.
issue is plainly better.
Yeah, this one's not awful. Like, well, that story structure made it hard to summarize. It's not a bad reading experience.
I still wasn't feeling this issue and only gave it a 2. It's on average close to a 3, but I couldn't do it for this one.
Yeah, just from the summary that I heard, I find it hard to get invested.
They pull it back next issue. They actually do a good job next issue pulling it back. So.
Yeah, this one I gave it 3, but it's low 3, like probably a 2.6 or 2.7. And unfortunately, there's not hard rating or half ratings on the site, so I had to go with a 3.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fine.
It's not great, but it's not terrible.
We could be reading something like this instead.
Oh, the horror!
I didn't see what it was.
Iron Man.
I understand that's actually quite good.
Yeah, Demon in the Bottle. It's like it's his essential must-read story. I also have the first appearance of War Machine right here too.
Nice.
And the first appearance of James Rhodes right here as well. In case you didn't know, I'm an Iron Man, Mar. Hey. Ta-da. My little show and tell piece of the podcast. We got cameras, it's a dangerous idea. Anyways, we got our ratings. Any other comments on this first part?
Now Dan's having to show something off too.
Is he showing stuff?
I
I'm
have
not
an
even
alien.
On. Yeah, I saw that in your lap.
I'm gonna kill you all. Die.
No, I talked about all my notes.
The only remarkable thing about this issue is that it's when Thor really moves into the continuing narrative.
Yeah. We
got there with Giant Man, unfortunately, and now we're there with Iron Man. And even though the early issues that go into these two-part little mini-arcs in most of the stories are fairly forgettable, it's a pretty important milestone for comics as a whole, because this is the start of them telling ongoing stories that actually makes it worth reading all the issues.
Thor needed something to give it a bit of depth, I guess is the word I'm looking for. You know, it needed something to get it going, to make it to start working, right? Because up to this point, it wasn't much. So, I mean, this can't hurt.
Yeah, the thing it really needs that's still a little ways off is for Don Blake to be deprioritized.
Don Blake can fuck off.
Once Thor is just Thor, the stories improve immensely.
I fucking hate Don Blake. I've always not liked the Don Blake concept. It doesn't make sense. When you think about it, it doesn't make sense.
It never really fit the character. It was just them trying to force it into superhero tropes. But anyway, enough repeating complaints about Don Blake. Let's move on to Journey into Mystery number 100.
That we will, as we probably have the same team pretty much. While George Ruchos helps Jack Kirby on the cover, and actually it's a way better cover. Sam Rosen's in the letters here. November 1963 release, another 13-page story. And Bill, you get the joy again. Oh, The Master Plan of Mister Hyde is the story title for this one. And
yes.
This is Spookville.
And so now we dive into a story that Don Heck was clearly much more rushed on.
Okay.
Because a lot of the fine line work that was in the last issue is not here this time. Anyway, this story opens with the police pursuing Thor for a robbery that we saw at the end of the last issue, which is how Thor realizes that he's wanted, and he immediately figures out on the first page that it must have been Hyde. Well, actually, it's the third page because there's some recap in there, but he figures out that it must be Hyde in disguise that framed him for robbing the bank.
Yeah.
So he needs to hide, so he just turns himself into Don Blake and goes back
so
to the
he can hide.
And goes back to the medical facility.
The local medical facility?
Yes. and takes Jane out on a date, because that's what you do when you're desperately wanted by the police and you're out of identity and you need to clear your name.
Yeah.
And he assures her that they'll probably never see Mr. Hyde again and everything's fine. And then we immediately see Mr. Hyde.
He lied.
And he has replaced the waiter and kidnaps Dawn and Jane right out of the restaurant and takes them up to his castle outside of town. And there he ties...
But he takes them where?
To his castle outside of town.
You know,
and yes,
his
by
castle
town I mean
outside
New
of
York
town.
City.
Yeah.
Okay.
His castle.
There
outside of New
are
York.
like
Yeah,
in the Marvel universe of the 60s, there are like 5,000 castles that have been moved brick by brick from Europe.
right
Or
on
an
the
awful
edge.
lot of villains are renting them by the day.
There are a few castles like in New England area that were moved from Europe. So that's not
Yes,
entirely
but
out of the realm of possibility.
It's not out of the realm of possibility, but they use the trope an awful lot.
Okay.
In fact, it was already used in a Strange Tales issue, I believe. So.
I think twice. Different
Probably.
castles. But anyway, he takes them there. He explains to them who he is and what he wants. And then he ties Don Blake to a pillar and
Kinky.
leaves him in the castle with a bomb that will detonate in 24 hours if anything happens to him, so he can't disarm it. And then he leaves with Jane. She's going to be his hostage while he goes to steal a nuclear submarine.
Sorry. Okay, keep going.
No. Let's get this out of your system. So he arrives at the port facility where the Polaris submarine he intends to steal is docked, and rips down the fence, attacks a guard, and we cut back to
The guard.
Yes.
The one guard guarding the submarine.
Presumably,
Yeah.
yes. There might be more, but they're not shown. Anyway, we cut back to Don Blake, who's trying to strain to reach his cane, and he finally gets a hold of it and turns into Thor and busts free from the ropes and heads into New York City to look for Hyde. And we go back to the docks, where you'll be pleased to know, Dan, there are many more guards who are pursuing Hyde and Jane. But they can't
good.
shoot because they don't want to kill Jane.
Well, of course not. That would be rude.
And so they call for help from the military. And we get a brief scene of Odin.
But wait, what? So the military's not guarding their Polaris submarine. They've got a private, rent-a-cop group guarding it?
Apparently, because he's calling Washington to send the military. And he has security written on his hat.
Exactly a project you'd hire a third party to protect.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. Yeah, mall cops.
Most likely that is a decision made by the necessity of the comic code, where they couldn't have Thor fighting the military because it might make people question the authority of the military, which was a thing, questioning like high-ranking police officers and military officers was forbidden by the comic code at the time, so that's most likely the reason for that.
Yeah, you could be right. Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
But then we cut to Asgard, where Odin is perving on Thor.
Ooh.
And he's engaged in his favorite activity which is gazing at Earth to watch his favorite son.
Oh. Kind
And
of like
then we
meeting the
cut-
merciless.
And we cut back to the Polaris dock, where Thor has arrived just as Hyde and Jane are getting into the submarine. And he starts threatening Hyde to let Jane go. So Hyde just casually rips a piece of the conning tower off and throws it at him, knocking him off the submarine.
Yes.
And after having ripped a chunk of the superstructure off the sub, Hyde gets into it with Jane anyway, presumably to submerge it and leave.
Well, there would be redundant systems, Bill. Come on. You got to
Yes,
allow
but
for a
do you
little
think-
realism in these stories.
Do you
Oh my
think
God.
Stan knows that?
I'm not sure Stan knows where the toilet is, okay?
Anyway, Thor rips the hatch off the submarine, and there is not an airlock in case you were worried, Dan. There's just one hatch he rips off, and he's right in the sub.
Oh, cool.
And he
So
gets
much for
in,
redundancy.
Yeah. He gets in there, and he finds Hyde pulling on some wires in there. I guess he actually just wanted to steal the copper from it.
Hey, you
And he-
get a little money off that copper.
Yeah, and
That's
he
true.
uses the wiring to tie Thor up, but Thor immediately busts free and judo throws him. But Thor has dropped his hammer to do this. And Jane is worried that if anything happens to Hyde, no one will be there to deactivate the bomb in the castle, and Don Blake will die. So she hides Thor's hammer so he can't get it back, and therefore can't stop Hyde so that Don Blake gets to live. Thor panics and starts looking for his hammer and can't find it in the room with one piece of canvas on the floor for an entire minute. So he kicks up a big windstorm with his cape that obscures the view of everything while he turns back into Don Blake and starts feeling around and finds his hammer, turns back into Thor before the windstorm dies down, and then goes back to fighting Hyde, who escapes over the side of the boat and swims away. And Thor and Jane... Yes, Dan?
The fuck?
We said
This
better,
is
not
so
good.
unnecessary. Oh my god, they're
This is my
adding
least
in
favorite part
elements
of the issue.
that have no reason to exist.
They all of a sudden have to fill 26 pages. They don't know what to do with that.
They bullshit on the spot a lot with Thor. He can suddenly do stuff, can't do stuff suddenly all the time.
Oh my god. Okay, Bill, finish it off so that I can just go shoot myself and get it over with.
All right. So Thor and Jane leave the submarine where they're confronted by the security force, who know that Thor or Hyde impersonated Thor, and so therefore Thor is now cleared of all the crimes he was suspected of, despite the fact that no evidence has ever come up in any way to show that it wasn't actually Thor committing the crimes. And Thor says that they have not seen the last of Hyde, and then gets distracted by noticing that Jane looks really sad, and that's because she thinks that with Hyde fleeing, now no one's there to flee Don Blake, and he's going to die. And so Thor's like, don't worry, I'll go to Hyde's castle and set him free. And flies off, and Jane's like, but how does he know where the castle is, or that Thawne is there? And then we cut back to Asgard, where Odin is looking at it, looking down at what happened, and he saw that Jane hid Thor's hammer, but didn't figure out why. And so he tells Thor that he will never make Jane an immortal because she's clearly not worthy. And we leave with Thor standing on the top of a mountain yelling into the universe how unfair life is because he can't see his girlfriend because of his dad.
God!
And this is where the Jane Foster Odin feud started.
Okay. So, aside from being the dumbass story, this could be close to the number one worst story for the month for me. I'm tempted. Although the Iron Man one kind of
That's
just
the
that
second week of the
lame
month.
closing, that lame closing on the Iron Man stories.
So you're saying you like the Spider-Man stories more than some of the other stuff this week?
That is one ugly ass shirt you're wearing, Ryan. Just so you know. Unfortunately, God, I don't want to say this out loud, so I'm just not going to say it. No, fuck it. They all suck. Screw you.
So my statement at the start of this episode of Iron Man being your beacon of hope for this week was semi-true, but not really. Just because of the ending.
Yeah.
Well, I gave this
That
one
was
3
horrible.
stars. I found this one more enjoyable than the last.
This one was 3 for me as well. Most of the horrible stuff that Dan is complaining about was everywhere in 1960s superhero comics. So
again, at some point, you guys have to explain to me how the hell Marvel survived this period of time.
And I
Went
give
on
you
to
the
become
answer I always
successful.
have. DC was doing the exact same shit at this time.
And I wonder how the hell they survived. God, no wonder they were putting out cowboy comics. Jeez.
Oh, the Cowboys are fighting robots at this time, too.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I'm going to give this a 2 simply because it was a fairly original concept in certain areas. I think there's certain elements to the story that are kind of fun. But this whole Thor turning into Don Blake when he's not holding his dildo thing is just getting a little annoying.
Yeah, it needs to stop.
Right. Just let Thor run around with his phallic symbol without having to worry about dying, okay? I'm serious. Let's just get it over with. Okay? When are we done with Don Blake?
We're never done with Don Blake, but he gets de-emphasized within a year of this comic.
Oh, well, we're
I don't
definitely
think I'm
done
gonna
with Don
survive
Blake
that.
for different periods, but not for a while, probably.
God help me.
They
God,
certainly
man.
just fucking get rid of the Don Blake concept during different runs.
Yeah, but then they bring it back up again.
Yeah, they brought it back in like the 2010 run, but then they also got rid of it like right away. Again, they got rid of it when Marvel Now happened. So
Yeah, I mean, even by
and it's never come back
like
again.
1965 or so,
Well, kind of.
Don Blake really only turns up when they need a surgeon.
Because it's just, this is annoying.
This
It
episode of
really
Grey's
is. This
Anatomy.
whole... Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, at this point, Thor wasn't yet the Norse god of thunder. He was Superman with a reskin and a hammer.
Yeah.
Except he used to be the Norse god of thunder, but now a human grabbed the
Yeah,
hammer.
but that's
and now
just the origin
human got
story. For the
Thor.
actual
Yeah.
execution of the story, it's totally a Superman's clone.
Oh, it is. I'm
Yeah.
just being facetious.
Oh, it's just horrible. Just horrible.
There's a reason this title hasn't been on my poll list yet.
Yeah. But we got to close this off.
Yeah,
Because
we
it's
sure
almost...
do.
Yeah.
We all said our ratings, yes we did. So, Mister Hyde won't appear again until issue 105, so actually not that long away. It's actually the next issue I have to read personally.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
use Hyde a lot for a while.
Yeah.
They
Right
do.
now he's in
He's-
hiding.
Yeah. On that note, next week we will be back. Next week we will. It is the All Thor episode. We can't wait for this. We're going
What?
to open up. Yes, all the stories next week
Oh,
are
okay.
all Thor.
I'm not going to complain. It could be all fucking Spider-Man. So
we
we're
are
okay.
we are in a
That's
stretch of
1992.
we are in a stretch of 12 Thor stories right now.
I swear I will kill you both if you try
So
to do an all
next
Spider-Man
episode is all Thor, and then the first four stories of the one after that. No, the first 4 stories of the episode after that are still Thor. But the
It's
episode
not as
ends
much
with
as
stuff
it
different.
seems, though, because half of those are Tales of Asgard.
Yeah, we're actually like the next 2 episodes are probably going to be really quick because half the stories are 5-pagers. So
Nothing wrong with that.
we will be reading, I guess I should say the issues. We will be reading the C story of issues number 99 and 100, which is the issues we just read the A stories of. These are the Tales of Asgard stories. We will then be reading all the A stories of issues number 101 through issue number 104. So we will get our 13 pages there. And then we will read the Tales of Asgard from all those in the episode after, which, wow, all 4 of those grouped together, we will literally only have a few full comic stock with it. So yeah,
Cool.
interesting.
Yeah.
So should be an interesting next couple weeks. I'm sure we will be very tired of talking about Thor after that for a little bit. So which is good that we get a little break from him after that.
Better than
it is-
Spider-Man.
Not really, but still, it actually gets a little better.
The second little mini Thor arc is
is a lot better.
one of the more interesting things they do for a while. The first mini Thor arc is
The Hyde
not
story isn't
my
that great.
favorite. I mean, they're about the same quality, but I don't love that premise. But
it's two more two-parters. The second one's a lot better. Gets Odin right into the forefront, and introduces some great villains of Thor's Rogues Gallery. But the first half it's surprisingly good, but it's definitely not as good as the second.
it's better than what a lot of those style stories are.
It's probably still slightly better than what we just read. So
Yeah, I would agree with that.
using a pretty shitty villain in a shockingly good way.
That doesn't
so.
mean a whole lot because there's really nowhere to go but up.
Or Ant-Man.
It's not Cobra.
Yeah.
I like Cobra better than Hyde.
I suppose it's
I
better than
don't.
Rawhide Kid.
Anyways, let's end this one. I guess you have now met us in our faces, so we will be seeing you back this way probably every week from now on. We will at some point figure out when we are doing that bonus episode for the Halloween theme and a suggestion of what movies to watch around Halloween. So stay tuned for that. We will probably have
Now
a
you
date
know
for
how
that as
ugly
of
we
next
are.
week.
Next, you'll be learning how
That's right.
fucked up we are with our movie recommendations.
Oh, you
Yeah.
just wait. This is going to be good.
It's going to be a fun episode, so make sure to tune in. If you haven't watched the other bonus episodes, go check those out. MCU Phase 1 discussion. We did a Brightburn discussion. We did a 30 Days a Night discussion. And I feel like I'm leaving one out.
Batman
Discussion.
Batman.
That was arguably the best one, although Phase 1 MCU was also... Phase 1 MCU and Batman were both really good, doing groups of discussion. But, anyways, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe, comment, and even share if you'd like to. Anyway, guys, we will see you on the next episode. Oh, check us out on Spotify and leave a click on the poll, which story was your favorite, and we are also available on Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. Anyway, guys, we will see you on the next one, and peace out.
Have a good one.